Good morning, guys, and welcome to Mike's Fish Room. Thought I'd try something a little different today. I had a lot of questions after my last video about breeding the Blue Gularis, and a lot of them had to do with troubleshooting. What if my fish don't breed? So I'm going to go over a whole bunch of items that you can look back on to figure out why your fish aren't breeding, how do I get them breeding. So let's get started. First up, okay, I'm going to talk about age a little bit. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, your fish aren't breeding. Are they too young? Gosh, their eggs aren't fertile? Are they too old? Well, let me tell you this. They can actually start laying fertile eggs pretty young. So this whole idea that they need to be over a year old or, gosh, they're over 2 years old, they're not going to lay fertile eggs anymore, that's not the issue, okay? Maybe there's some evidence that fertility increases somewhere in the middle, but I've had fish well under a year laying fertile eggs as well as well over 2 years old. So let's move right past that, okay? I would say the number one thing we got to focus on, okay, is going to be conditioning, if the other conditions are met. So with conditioning, it's mostly going to be about food. A lot of live foods. So I personally, in my fishery, I feed Daphnia, white worms, and frozen bloodworms is the staple for these. I also have red wigglers, the worms, the composting worms, which I'll chop up and mix in every once in a while. Blue Gularis will eat flake, so I can give them dry food occasionally, but I would say 60% or more of their diet is made up of bloodworms, white worms, or Daphnia in my fish room. They can eat quite a bit. A full belly is what you want to see, and this is kind of gonna dive into the next topic, which is water conditions. If you're feeding them properly, you need to be keeping the water tip top because they're going to produce a lot of waste. They're almost like the goldfish of the killifish. So make sure that you're feeding twice a day, filling up that belly, but you're doing water changes on top of that. Okay, they can quickly succumb to different bloat, dropsy, if that water gets too dirty and they're really eating a lot. In addition, on water conditions and water changes, I haven't found them to be too picky. My old home was a pH of around 8.2 and medium hardness, no issues there. And now I'm in soft water, it's about 7.5 it settles out at, and still producing just fine. The temperature, you know, a lot of people go into, you know, they need to be really cool, 70 degrees to really producing eggs. I had my fish outdoors this summer. I had killifish in tubs. I'm in Georgia. It was probably anywhere from 78 in the morning to 85 in the day, and they were producing eggs just fine. So I would not say that the temperature being too warm is going to be your issue. In fact, my fish grew very well outside. I wouldn't say the egg production was tip top, but I wasn't feeding them as much as well. So that might have contributed to not as many eggs. Next, natural resting periods. If it's just a week or two, don't panic. That happens. There's lots of different killifish that take a break. And I often go through periods, especially if I go on vacation for a week and don't feed them. They'll take off 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. But, you know, a random week here or there where they don't produce any eggs, don't think too much about it. Now, if you're doing everything right that I've talked about and your fish aren't producing, you might come to think that your fish are incompatible. Maybe there's something wrong with your fish. I have a quick solution for that. Separate your pair. Move one of them to another tank. Condition them separately for a week or two. I would go with 2 weeks. Don't do 1 week. and reintroduce them after that period. A nice reset, I think, can do wonders with Blue Gularis. So give that a shot. Next up, tank size. Killifish can go both ways here. Sometimes they need lots of space. Fundulopan shacks are often not so nice to their mates and can beat up on each other. So there you want to lean a little bit more towards the larger tank. But at the same time, sometimes they're kind of lazy. And if the tank's too big, they might not be going to look for their mate. And they never meet each other, and they're not laying many eggs. So if you notice not much activity at all in the tank and they're both kind of hanging out on opposite ends, maybe a smaller tank is the key. But if they're really beating each other up, then maybe you need more space. So you can always adjust tank size. That might help you out. And lastly, you'll notice this a lot when you get new fish from people. You bring them home and they immediately breed. Sometimes they just need a whole new setup. So if everything's not working, rather than just separating them, put them in brand new tanks. And I mean water that has just been dechlorinated, 30 minutes ago, 100% water change, new decorations, new whatever. Hopefully that'll help you out. All right. Oh, and I got one more topic for you. Spawning mops. If you're like me and you use spawning mops, if you have a big tank and you have one spawning mop, they're not very good about placing their eggs in the spawning mop. I'll see them in corners all the time, just doing their thing, laying their eggs on top of plain glass. So how many of those eggs are actually going to get caught by the spawning mop? Not so many. They're just going to eat them afterwards. So you can always add a lot more spawning mops. If you cover the bottom in peat or sphagnum peat moss, that's not going to be much of an issue. Other people breed them over sand. And then obviously you can try to harvest all of them that way. I'll do sweeps through my bare bottom tank sometimes just to see if there's any eggs laying on the glass, and I'll often get one or two, but not enough to bother with on a regular basis. Anyways, I hope that helps. I hope you have great success with your Blue Gularis, and till next time, cheers.